There is a one-shot pistol within Escape from Tarkov, and that is what today's video is looking at. Of course, this is Nutshell, and today we are looking at the RSH-12, the 12.7x55 revolver version of this gun. And this thing is a machine. Not only are you able to one-shot PMCs, but you're also able to hit bosses really well, and we were able to take out Tagilla in the head with this thing. And when you have a gun of this sort of caliber, it really does feel absolutely OP. It might not be the best gun in the game by far, and in fact is probably not the gun that you'd want to pick if you're trying to complete tasks. But if you are just trying to actually play the game, enjoy the game, and try out something new, this is the gun that I would recommend. I had an absolute ton of fun when I was using this thing, and not only does it look cool, but it also feels really good to play with. And of course, it's always fun when you do one tap a PMC in the chest, and when you hit them in the head, it feels even better. So without further ado, let's take a look at how much this thing will actually cost you, and whether it is worth the price. Of course, I mean, it looks pretty cool, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to try it out, test it out, and have a bit of fun whilst doing it. So, in terms of the loadout of this gun that we have gone for, and now this gun has a variety of different options that you can use within the game, and primarily centers around the fact that you are using a pretty decent ammunition, which comes in the form of PS12B. Now, this ammunition you can actually purchase, but it is only purchasable from Prapple, which is negative, but it is still usable with some other ammunition that you can pick up with this thing, except that the PS12B has really high penetration, up to level 4 plates, with level 5 being medium as well, which means you are able to deal damage to a lot of the people that you're going to be coming up against, whether that's PMCs or whether it's bosses. It's really effective, and because the massive amount of damage per one of the rounds, we're sitting at 102, it means that you can one-tap bosses in the head if you do come up against them. So regardless of what you meet in the game, provided that they don't have a level 6 helmet, you can one-tap them quite easily, and even if they do have level 6 helmets, you can still one-tap them in the head, provided that the round actually penetrates, because Tarkov's penetration is slightly different to just having a purely it will stop everything. It has a percentage chance dependent on the fact that you're hitting said piece of armor. The thicker it is, and the lower the penetration of a gun, the less likely it is to go through. But if you have high penetration and also the armor is capable of being penned, so you can see here, very low chance of going through level 6, but it can still do that. And there's a really good ammo chart, I'll leave it in the description. You can see the actual kind of values and the ranges at which you're probably likely to go through a lot of the armor in the game. It's the Tarkov ammo chart. You can find it on Google or check the link in the description, and you'll be able to find out about ammo a bit more in depth than just the simple system that is within the game, saying very high, medium, very low. But what does that actually mean? That's what the Tarkov ammo chart really kind of highlights. But in terms of the setup of this, how much is it actually going to cost you? Well, the actual gun itself is relatively cheap, 45k here, and the setup that you can go for with this is actually pretty cheap as well. So if we grab it out and edit the preset, you'll see what I'm actually using on this gun. There's not a lot of kind of customization you can really do. The only real things that you can do is add a scope as well as a flashlight. Now, we've gone for the X400 because it's both a flashlight and a laser, and it works really well in combination with each other, especially for trying it out on a map like Factory. It was really useful to have that flashlight and the laser at the same time, just in case you got ambushed by anyone. But the scope, the MRS, that's what we've gone for. Obviously, it's personal preference. You could go for something completely different. You could even go as far as to put on a sniper scope on this thing. I mean, it would probably work, but whether or not you'd actually want to do that is completely up to you, but I'm sure it is possible to actually use and would be kind of effective as well. So maybe test it out and give it a go yourself, and let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this gun. Of course, the ammunition, as we said before, there are 3 different types that you can use with this gun. We can check it by going on link search on the gun. You can see there's PS12A, and I believe that there's also PS12, which is even worse. So if we have a look here, it has a a very high chance of level 1 and 2, and a high chance at level 3. And the good thing about this round in particular is that it does have a heavy chance to cause bleeding, or a chance to cause bleeding that's quite high of 20%, as well as a light bleeding of 30%. So it's quite easy to knock off people's limbs, as well as just blanket one-tap them in the chest and of course the head. And even if you hit them in kind of the middle section, you can often go through a lot of armor with the PS12B. The PS12, obviously the weaker of the load of them. Then you've got PS12A, which is more readily available and can be purchased on the flea. However, this is the kind of the big one. This is what you do if you want to just one-tap things like scavs in the chest everywhere, or even hit them in various different places. I'm sure you could probably one-tap them in the stomach or something like that, or maybe even in the leg with 165 damage. It's crazy how good this round actually is. Probably not going to one-tap someone in the leg, but you never know. If they've been damaged a little bit, you probably could. Of course, you can two-shot them in the leg if you really wanted to, if you hit the same leg, obviously. But if you hit them in the thorax, it's over for them, as long as you pen. And the good thing about this one is that it has a 30% chance to cause a heavy bleed, or a 35% chance to cause a light bleed. Very useful against bosses, because a lot of the time if you hit them, they'll go and they'll actually heal up. This is really good because then you can push them whilst they're healing and they basically do nothing to you, especially Tagilla in particular. So something you can use if you're wanting to farm Tagilla. But is it the best one to do that? Probably not, because at the end of the day, it only can go through level 1 armor, which is not particularly great. So that is where we opt for the PS12B, and is one of those rounds that you can only purchase from traders when you do level them up. But it is definitely worth testing out with both of the other ammunition types, because it will really storm through a lot of the things that you'll be finding in the game. And of course, if you hit them just above their armor plates, it's game over as well. So often you'll be able to just one tap PMCs if you hit them in the thorax, and of course the neck area, very easy to one tap them even with the kind of ammunition that can't go through plates. This one does get significantly less damage with 102, but it works really well and I've been enjoying playing with it. It's something fun, and I think that is something that is really cool about PvE, because you can test out guns that aren't necessarily very meta, in quotation marks, that you would see on PvP, where it's just constant meta guns. Everyone's using the same ones with the same attachments with the same thing because it is just the best. On PvE you can experiment, and if you've got anything that you would like me to do a video on, let me know, because I'm very interested in testing out various different weapon builds that are very novel and unique and not your typical that you would see within Tarkov itself. So with that being said, let's have a look at some gameplay, because I'm sure you want me to back up my BS when it comes to this weapon. So jumping into the game, we spawn on factory next to the jackets, and of course next to the kind of excavators, that sort of stuff, and the forklifts. And so essentially what usually happens is there's PMCs that spawn outside, either directly where we threw that nade, to the left of where we threw the nade, or straight behind these doors as well. Scavs can also spawn here, we check quite easily. There's PMCs that can spawn down the kind of area directly in front of us, and you see that we actually spotted a PMC just down the way. And of course now we're going to try throw a nade, get in cover, and hopefully he runs towards us, which we can't really see. But instead now we get swarmed by a scav who, yeah, unfortunately for him, is going to find it very difficult to do anything right now. Now, unfortunately for me, I was a bit of a bot and didn't decide to actually put my med spawns actually in my inventory so we could use them on the hotbar. But you can see there, we finish off that scav in one. We hit that guy's arm, and he looks like he's going to push us. We hit that guy just a little bit too far to the right, where we probably hit his shoulder and his arm rather than his actual chest or thorax, which is kind of a little bit disappointing. But now we take the reload. Now the reload on this is a little bit long, and you'll find that sometimes it can work in a negative way against you, but you know, sometimes you have to do a bit of fun rather than just the best in the game. But you can see here we are now putting on a splint and we can start actually doing something. We're going to see both PMCs and bosses as well as scavs that we can take out, so you get a full range of the sorts of armor that things will be using, as well as how effective this weapon actually is when it comes to all sorts of different things. Now, this weapon is predominantly one that if you have really good aim within the game, you'll probably love seeing and playing with it. You do have to have ammunition in your actual, rig or your pocket, so you can just load it straight up. You don't need to have any magazines with this weapon because it is a revolver. You just load them in at the time. So it does save time with regards to packing mags or anything like that, but it can leave you high and dry when you do fire all of those 5 shells. You can't actually have any bigger of a revolver, so it is just 5 purely rounds. So you can see here up against that little PMC who for some reason didn't aggro me. Looks like he was aggroed on someone else, but he can go back to where he belongs, and that is spawning somewhere else on some other map. But you can see pretty easy. I mean, he didn't have the best of armors, and you can see how much damage we did to his armor, 56 out of 70 just from that one hit. And we're just going to loot him up, get whatever we need, and preferably pick up some meds as we did use them. And then see if he's got any nades, because that would be highly nice to have. And of course picking up some flechette just in case we want to make a bit of money from this raid, because yeah, the PS12B shells are quite expensive, 900 per round, but I mean, you're only really firing off 1 or 2 or maybe 3 in any one kind of revolver chamber, so not really a big problem. So when it comes to now moving forward in this match, what do we want to do? Well, we're chasing down anything that we possibly can. I wanted to show off what this can be. I'm not particularly bothered if we do get taken out by anything. It definitely happens, and of course mainly when you are reloading, it can be a bit of a pain. So if you were to make this into a more meta kind of gun that you could use a lot more fluidly within the game, then I would highly recommend having a main gun and then having this as your secondary. Is a bit of fun to swap to when you feel like it. But there's a lot of fighting going on in this raid in particular, and of course that usually means one thing, that there's a boss in this raid. And so we're going to see if we can find him. When you come around this corner, there's often PMCs or scavs that will be directly near these kind of forklifts, and you can see here, one tapped, and that's the sort of thing that you can do. Pretty much no real weapons other than maybe sniper rifles can probably do this in the game, and of course there are some rounds that you can use on various different weapons that will be very effective, but definitely not as effective as basically a 50 cal straight into the chest. You can see there's some other PMCs that are around, or at least scavs. We hit him there, which is a bit unfortunate. We didn't just one tap him, and then we hit him again and he still survived, so I was very, very surprised hitting him twice. I guess maybe we didn't hit the right part of him, maybe we were hitting the stomach, and so he must be very, very low at this point. So another shot will finish him off quite easily. Now we'll just push this guy. You can see here, if you aim for the thorax, they are gone, regardless of what sort of armor that they do have in the game. This raid was just filled with PMCs and also scavs, as well as the boss, so it was just a bit of a nightmare to really coordinate where you want to go, and especially when you consider how many people we do take out throughout this raid in such a short period of time with this pistol. You can kind of get a feel for what this pistol can actually do, or revolver we should call it really. But you can see pretty much just healing up now, just in case we do come up against something that is a bit more PMC or bossy, and of course putting our arm back on just to make sure that we don't get shotgunned in the arm and end up keeling over, which would not be a good idea. So if you do have time to actually put back on your arms, in PvE it's very easy. You don't usually get pushed by much. If scavs do hear you healing, they will push you. PMCs can do as well, so just bear that in mind. But of course you can cancel your CMS kit or your med kit whilst you're kind of healing at the same time anyway. So you can always, just tap the fire button and it will stop you from actually performing that action. So that comes in quite useful sometimes if you do hear someone kind of aggressively approaching you. But most of the time it's not too bad. So you can see here we see someone coming through. Looks like a PMC. Not today, and he is gone from this raid, and that is basically what this thing can do. It is just a solid weapon. If you hit him anywhere in kind of the upper chest, it's just game over. And even when they have good armor, there we go, another PMC gone. Don't quite know what his body was doing there, doing a bit of a somersault, but whatever, we still move. And of course, when you're firing only a couple shells, it's super quick to reload. It's only really if you have to fight, you know, 3 or 4 people at the same time and you're not tracking how many shots you've fired, that it can be a problem. Now, I know that there's someone down by the ramp over there, and we just saw someone, so I'm really hoping it's not the boss, but unfortunately we missed that shell right there. But now it's time to kind of push towards them. Hopefully we can get one or get a couple, and yeah, we'll see what kind of happens during the next part of this raid, because gets definitely a bit sketchy as we move forward. I had a raid a while back on Factory whereby we basically ran into Tagilla straight away, and he did not like it at all. And so yeah, it wasn't the best opportune moment to actually go after. You can see there, PMC dump one into the side of him. He's gone. And yeah, I just purely love this thing. I wanted to show it off, and hopefully you guys will at least try it out, or at least attempt to use something like this. I think it's really fun that PvE does have the option to not just use the most meta things all of the time, as that's what the game mode's about. It's supposed to be, you know, you can play however you want, and whether that be, you know, doing the most meta things or not the most meta things doesn't really matter all of the time. That guy did actually keel over. I thought he'd actually just escaped, but he didn't. We're getting aggroed by someone else. And oh no, he didn't keel over. He did actually survive that one, but we put one into the back of him and he's gone. And basically this this gun can actually do quite a lot of blunt damage as well. So if you are hitting people, you can just basically pump them. Just hitting them twice will pretty much take out most people. You can see here we're just advancing towards the stair, and let's see what we can actually do here. Uh-oh. That is not the person we wanted to see, but don't worry, because Tagilla's gone in 2 shots. Yep, that was the boss, and we hit him with a second one there. We hit that guy, he's gone, and yeah, we managed to take out Tagilla in just 2 shots of the revolver. That kind of tells you what you need to know and how good it is even against some of the armor, provided you hit in the right place. We hit him in the head, just for a bit of a context there, with the second one, which either means we dealt so much blunt damage to Tagilla that it just flat out killed him, or we potentially just injured him so badly with the first shell that hitting him in the face dealt blunt damage and killed him, or we just penetrated his face mask and ended up killing him. Either way, I mean, just crazy. I wasn't expecting to actually take out Tagilla, and when you see him in your raids when you're using this pistol, you're probably crapping yourself, which is definitely what I was feeling at that moment in time. But now it's time to reload and push towards and see whether Tagilla actually had any gear on him and whether or not to take it. But at the end of the day, we did manage to take out Tagilla as well as a couple PMCs during the raid, and unfortunately for me, when I did try and extract, there was a scav that was not aggroed by PMC and I couldn't see the PMC, so we killed the scav that was directly in front of us and ended up getting taken out even with Tagilla's face mask and of course some pretty decent armor as well. So a little bit unfortunate there, but what can you do? Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And of course I wanted to show off what this pistol can do, and of course trying it on Factory was a ton of fun. I really hope you guys test it out and give it a go and let me know what you think of this one. If you've tried it out already, let me know if you've got any more wackier builds with a scope on this thing, and hopefully you'll join me back in the next video. Catch you in a little bit. Goodbye.